Hi, I'm Christine Jull, and today with me I've got Stephen Milverton, and I'm excited. We used to work like a million years ago, probably around 20 years ago, at GE, General Electric, GE Capital, and both of us have learnt a lot since then. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with Stephen and find out what we can talk about together that would be helpful for other people. I'm going to particularly take a thread from our past, from General Electric, and the concept of integrity. What Steve and I saw as integrity at that time and how we see it now. So I'm going to particularly focus us on integrity in a meeting. So, Steve, give me what you got.
Well, first of all, Christine, look, I'm actually really excited because, yeah, you're right. It's probably been 20 years since we actually worked together. But, I've had the opportunity to witness your fantastic journey since then. And I know you've done the same. And when we reached out to do this, I was super excited to get onto this call. So integrity for me in meetings, it comes down to probably the first thing to think through this is, when we talk about leaders and leadership, what does it look like? Leadership for me is a set of visible behaviors. And so a lot of people talk about what leadership is, but they don't then, if you like, walk the talk. And so for me, it's what am I seeing from a leader that shows that they're directly integrity with what they're saying and what they're actually doing, what their actions are the same. So when I look back at myself and, my career over a period of time, and I see how I behaved in some meetings, I was definitely not in alignment with my integrity from that point of view. I would get frustrated. I would talk over the top of people. I would actively disengage in meetings, and my body language would show all those sorts of things. So if I had a team that were looking up to me as being a leader for them, and they actually got to witness those actual behaviors, it'd be fair for them to say, is this a guy I really want leading me? Is this something that I really want to be taking place around me? So I think that's the thing when we talk about integrity. It's that alignment between what's coming out of my mouth and what am I saying, and what could be witnessed if I didn't know that I had a camera on me. And that's probably one of the key things. Like, we can always flip the switch, right? As soon as we know that we're being watched, it's really easy to go into acting mode, if you like, and acting in the way people expect me to do. But what happens if we had the hidden camera? What happens if you were in a meeting room and you didn't know there's a hidden camera in there and you gone and shut the doors? How are you acting as a leader? Like, what's actually taking place in that room? And if someone was actually replay that back later, would you be proud of how you acted? And what would your team actually think? And what would be their feedback? So that's probably, my initial viewpoints about, where we are with the, I suppose, integrity and what can take place within the room. And I put my hand up and go, absolutely, there'd be times that the hidden camera would have caught me doing some very, very poor behaviors and some behaviors that I probably wouldn't be proud of. But as you said, in 20 odd years, we get to grow, we get to reflect on our careers and our lives. And we're in a position now to probably look back and give back to people and say, here's something for you to maybe think about.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And I think we can look back and be so harsh on ourselves. Should have done this, could have done this. Why didn't I? What did I do? How did I impact other people? And there's another way of approaching that, and that is, I think it's a bit missing at the moment in leadership. There's a lot of blame, a lot of toxic culture talk, and leaders are getting bombarded by, you should be doing this, or you can't do that, don't do this to your employees. And maybe that's true. But what's also true is that leaders are doing things, and certainly at GE, I was doing a lot of talking over people or trying to get my point across because I was doubting myself a lot. It was about me and what was coming out of me that was a challenge. If I was able to be in the moment, catch myself and go, why am I talking louder? Maybe I'm excited. Maybe I'm nervous. Maybe I'm angry at myself because I didn't figure that thing out. And now I've got to defend myself. There's a million reasons why we behave in different ways, but being close to what it is really happening in the moment, I think, is the power. Not blaming ourselves for being a bad leader.
No, look, I'll definitely agree. I think the trait of a good leader is actually that trait of reflection, not self-sabotage or going and beating yourself up. So if you felt that you're in a meeting, and I like what you were just saying then about, that competitive nature, because when we both worked at GE, like GE was a very competitive organization and it was built on meritocracy, but meritocracy itself is built on I'm competing against others because, I was promoted based on my merits, which was actually how well I was performing. Right. And so there was this sort of challenges. And then there's that embarrassment about ones if I got it wrong or ones that I didn't know. What are my peers going to think about me? And then as you're saying, the self-doubts and everything starts to kick in. So I think on that aspect, what a leader should be doing is saying, am I in the room and am I actually looking to lift everybody up at the same level? Or am I actually in this competition mode? One where I actually are trying to actually put myself above others. And so, by me lifting myself, am I actually pushing someone else down? And what does that actually look like for them? And am I going away? And the second part of that around that reflection is if you felt that some of your behaviors weren't that appropriate in the meeting, a true leader not only then would forgive themselves because it's actually okay to say, look, I'm a human, right? So I made a mistake and something was going on in my life and I'm aware of that. But the second part is to go to others and say, hey, look, I just want to let you know that I don't feel that my behaviors in this last meeting were that appropriate. I felt that I may have overtalked over you. And if I did, and have that willingness and the humbleness to then go and apologize. And it's not about, and again, we often see, I think, apologies and everything else as being, I don't know, sometimes maybe a bad thing or that it's a sign of, weakness or whatever else. But the reality is it's just acknowledging that maybe you weren't at your best and that you had that impact on someone else. And so how are you going about after you've reflected? What are you doing in the next meeting you're actually going to do? What are you actually changing? How are you spending time understanding maybe why you felt, as you were saying, was it coming from a level of self-doubt? Was it becoming because I feel I'm never being heard? Is it coming because I've got some reason, I've got this underlying frustration that's sitting in me that, I don't know where it's coming from, but that just every now and then it comes out. Like what is a leader doing to reflect on those elements of their, their personal or professional life? And then saying, okay, if I've reflected on it, now what am I going to do about it? Because again, words is one thing and reflection is really good and that's really thinking about it, but what's the next set of actions that you're going to actually then take to be able to actually pick up and start to move forward, to start to change that behavior into the behavior that you would expect of yourself, which is in line with, as we spoke about very early, in line with your integrity of what you see as a leader and what you would expect from a leader, which is what you're expecting from yourself.
Yeah. And I love, that you picking up on that, perhaps that shame theme. Shame is a big, powerful emotion. And so after a meeting, we can feel like, oh, God, I shouldn't have said that. I could have done that differently. And we feel shame and we go and apologize from shame. What if there's another level of approaching the problem to understand the shame first and why that shame is there, neutralize ourselves and how we're feeling before having that conversation and saying, look, I would really love your advice. We just had this meeting and I had some thoughts about my own behaviors and what happened in that meeting and how it might have impacted people. I'd really like your advice about how it came across to you and what you saw.
I love that.
Rather than asking for feedback, like tell me what to do, but or give it to me, smack me some more, Shane. But I love to hear that curiosity and bringing that in. Wow, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, and the key step when people do that, when they choose to actually take that step, it's just listen. And so if you're going to take the step of saying, I felt that I may not have been at my best, but you give me some feedback about how you felt, that impacted yourself or others in the meeting. If we're coming from shame, the quick thing we want to do is defend ourselves and start to tell all the reasons. Oh, well, it's because someone cut me off on the way to work, or because this is going on in my life. And we start to put up all the stories and the excuses, but then justify that behavior, even though you've asked for feedback about how did it impact. So the key thing about that is go through that process and sit there and acknowledge, and then just thank the person for providing the feedback, and then go away and reflect on that feedback later on. And some of it may be true to you, and some of it may not have been true to you, and some that you can change, and some of the person's reaction may have actually been to do with their own elements that they need to deal with, and that's okay. But yeah, the key, the risk we have is when we ask for feedback is that we spend as much time justifying, or arguing against the feedback, as opposed to just humbly taking it on board and just going, thank you. I appreciate that. Now I can go away and think about it, and I can reflect on what that actually looks like for me.
And that's why I love the distinction between calling it feedback versus advice. Because with advice, we know that we take on what is really gels with us and feels good for us. And when we come back to our integrity topic, it feels in integrity to take on some advice and to let go of some. Whereas when it's feedback, it can be a bit loaded, especially in corporate culture. That feedback is, brace myself, it's coming. Whereas, I've got to take it all on and everything they said is right. Whereas advice, I like that distinction. I think it's a great distinction.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'm on a similar thing. For me, it's I think it's, if people are used to using the term feedback, then that's okay. I mean, go with it. But I think you're talking more about the essence of that, how it's coming back to you, and how you're actually going about asking it, and what you're looking for in relation to how you can constantly improve, and how you can actually take some of those elements on as you actually continue to move forward. So I definitely agree. It's about that there's about this reflection cycle. So it's like, that the whole, act, do, reflect, change, act, do, reflect, change. So, in relation to the world of action research or action learning, it's like I do an action. Then what actually happens is that action is already set off a trigger of activities that's taking place. Now, I can't take those back purely by my action. I've actually already changed, if you like, the course of the world. It's moving forward. That person's viewpoints, those person's feelings, what I've done is actually starting. I can reflect on that, though. I can actually see where I can improve, and that might be by getting advice from someone else about, hey, what do you think I can do? I can actively make that change. And then when I go to the next meeting that I'm in, people will start to see that you're interrupting less, that you're actually less frustrated, that you're actually openly seeking feedback from everybody, and you're actually encouraging participation from everybody. And when we make it started, it's people will start to then trust you more in meetings, because they're seeing the change in the actionable behavior. It's not like you walked out and said, sorry, I'm never going to do that again. My apologies. I was out of order. And then you walk into the next meeting, and again, you talk over the top of somebody, and you're frustrated again. People are going to go, you said this, but we're actually seeing you do that. So the thing is, when you go to that next meeting that had those people in it, can they then physically see, can that hidden camera see that you might interrupt 3 times rather than 5 times? You might interrupt, you might only be frustrated once rather than 3 or 4 times, because you've been able to think about those elements that you can take control back of yourself about, some of those little techniques that you've taught yourself, or that you've gone out and learnt about how to be a bit more controlled in meetings and what you can actually do. And then people start to see they're applying it. And then, as you said, when you go and seek some advice, go back to the same person that you originally got the advice from that's in these meetings. Go, so what's your viewpoint now? And they might go, well, I don't know what you've done, but all of a sudden, here's what I'm seeing. So whatever you're doing, keep it up, because the meetings are much better and we're seeing a much better outcome, and we're seeing a much better version of you that appears to be in alignment with what we expect as a leader.
Yeah. I love what you're saying around alignment, and the word you used there, trust, because I think at the core of integrity is not, did I break the rules? Did I do something wrong or right? It's about, do I trust myself? Am I trusting who I want to be and the person I want to be? And if I'm out of alignment with that, picking up your second word, then that's the reflection point. How can I pull those things into line and to feel that sense of integrity and trust myself, to have my own back, no matter what the situation, how bad the meeting got, what those people said, what they didn't do, all that stuff. It doesn't matter. It's about, did you trust yourself in that situation? And if you didn't, how could you? What do you do? I think that's the core of integrity. Is our spine is integrity and strength. Got our own back in any situation.
Yeah, and I like the points that you're touching in there, because you've spoken a couple of times. One, you talked about shame, which is, a personal feeling, and you've talked about trust, which is a personal feeling, and you've talked about I've got my own back. And so, 20 odd years ago, when we were in the workplace together, one of the sayings was, feel free to leave your emotions at the door when you walk in, because we're in the professional workplace now, right? And I think the one thing that we've probably all learned is that there is no delineation between your personal and professional life, and in this day and age, right, even more so, because we're working from home, like we are working in our personal lives, like and what's going on around us. So a lot of the things that we look at in how to be in alignment or how to get alignment is we start to look externally about, what's the business doing for me? What's the organization doing for me? What's my manager doing for me? What's my leader doing for me to help me get back into alignment? But as we've touched on, feelings of shame, feelings of embarrassment, feelings of lacking of self-trust, lacking of self-belief. The key word in there is self. It's actually all got to come from us. And so in understanding that our personal and professional lives are one, there is no two different people. There is not Stephen Milverton, the professional, and Stephen Milverton, the personal, because I can't stop the personal element coming to the table in every meeting. That frustration is coming up. It's not my professional frustration. It's something deep down that I haven't dealt with, or that fear that I'm going to be seen as an imposter is not my professional fear. It's still a personal fear that's coming up. And so for me, it's about how do we work and how do people start having that thing about, okay, if that's actually being triggered from a personal aspect in my life, how do I actually solve for that, the deeper personal element that's actually going to help me from a professional leadership point of view, and even a personal leadership point of view? Because again, personal leadership, professional leadership, there is no difference, because, in that hidden camera syndrome, if you can act as a professional leader, but you can't act as a personal leader, then again, you're not in alignment. You're not in integrity with your true self and your true values. So that's been my thinking about when people go away and reflect. And yes, they might seek some professional advice from their colleagues and their peers, but maybe there's a level deeper that they need to start to think through to say, well, what's actually happening back in my home life, with my current family, and what happened when I was, back even further about as I was growing up, or what's taking place in the environment that I grew up in that may be resulting in some of these trigger behaviors, or these behaviors just popping up that I'm not able to currently control.
I love your bringing in the past into the now and in the future of where we want to be.
Mm.
And the only place we are, of course, is right now. All that stuff in the past is gone.
That's right.
Has one value: the lessons we take from it, because we can apply them now. And then
Correct.
in terms of the future, well, that's the exciting piece.
Mm.
And when we think that we are a whole person, because that's another thing that I picked up from what you were saying, when we're a whole person, we don't think of ourselves as broken. There's nothing wrong with us. We're 100% right now. You know, perfectionism, doubt in ourselves, etc., etc. If we just can generate that belief in ourselves right in this minute, and to know that we'll even be more and can do more by the time we get to when we want to be able to do it, we'll know the how. We don't know the how now, it doesn't matter.
Right.
We'll get it when we get to the place that we want to be.
Yeah, that definitely spot on. So I think, so for me, I think one of the things that we've spoken about to sort of get us to where we are, because I feel for the people listening into this, they're going to go, that's great, and I get it, and I'm with you, but what can I do? Like what? So yeah, that's me in a meeting. Yes, I get frustrated, but I don't know where it comes from, or I don't know how to control it, or yeah, I do talk over people because like I feel I've just got to get it out of my head. If I don't get it out of my head now, I'm going to forget about it, you know, and it was such a great idea. And so I know that people would be aligning with exactly what we're having a conversation about, because you know, we've been there, and that's why we're having these conversations, because we're like, we've reflected and gone, we've been there, and you know, and we saw ourselves as you know, and we were respected as leaders in organizations, and still are. You know, there's got to be people who are emerging leaders, who are current leaders, who are going through this, going, okay, that's great, you've got me. I know you've talked. It's like you said in my meeting last week, again, you witnessed what was going on. So you know, so maybe do like we move into, so what can we do? Yeah. So what can, you know, what are some of the things in your thought that, you know, the leader can, you know, in that reflection, or some tools or techniques you know that you've used that you think that these people can apply to help them move forward to become better leaders and more in alignment?
I think this applies to any level of leadership, and I call it self-leadership, because and we do at the Wave, we talk about the fact that no matter who you are, the challenges get bigger and bigger as we get into bigger roles, or we're in events that are a huge challenge, you know, big life challenges. And when we're in those events, or during, before, at any stage, I think we come back to the foundations that we don't apply to keep our energy high. I call it vitality, and we call it vitality at the Wave. And that is those foundations of how I eat, where I move, the time I spend in nature, the way I, take care of my mind. For me, it's meditation. It's also journaling. It's those basic features, because when your energy is high, you are less likely to go into that shame, into that anger, into those, you know, those elements are still there, and they're fine. They're all human emotions. We all feel them, we all get them, and you will always get them. Yes. However, it's our energy level as a whole to keep those high. So I'm not giving you the short fix. I'm sorry, but it's what you learn and how you challenge yourself every single day that makes the difference in the long run. You know, I think that ability to reflect and be willing to look at what is going on in your integrity and your personal self and why comes from the sugar you eat.
Yeah.
Those little pieces are about little pieces of integrity to ourselves. And so the more we do that, the bigger things we can do.
Yeah, no.
The drinking, all the things. We've done it all.
Right. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And,
As I say,
it's, yeah.
If you given lemons, make lemonade. Yeah, look, so I think from what you're touching on there, which I'm in alignment with, which is in the world of leadership where there is no difference between personal and professional, and a lot of the triggers that are happening in your professional leadership life are actually to do with the personal things. It's like, what personal practices are you putting into place? And there are many different books out there, and many different things, but what are some of those, deem it self-care, or what are those self elements that you're spending time on you to fill your own personal cup, to make sure that you are lifting up your energy, that you are feeling energized, that you are, if you like to use it, up and about, so when you get to work, you're energized and you're up and going. So what are you doing every morning to do that? I love, before, as we're having a conversation leading into this chat, you were telling me this morning that, you've done yoga, you've seen the sunrise, you've walked your dogs, you've done you've got out there, and you've connected with the morning sun, and there is so much power just in seeing a sunrise, and being with your local pal, the dog, just going along and just connecting in with that out nature, and then the movement of yoga. It's such an important sort of practices, and we can do that. We've got plenty of time before we have to start work to get all these things done. And it's around about how we're prioritizing our time, what we're doing. For me this morning, it was, seeing the sunrise and meditating when the sunrise was coming up, and then knowing I was going to jump on this call. Me having these conversations fills my cup, because I love sharing. I love sharing knowledge. I love, reconnecting with people that I haven't had a chance to reconnect with for many years. And, so what the thing is, rather than maybe giving people that advice, and there are some tools and techniques, the question to ask the people out there is go and find what it is that fills your cup. Go and find what it is that energizes you. What really gets you, when you're doing it, you just feel like you could bust apart the world. You could do anything. You're just full of life. What is it for you? And then try to incorporate that into a daily practice. And you can do mini versions of it. It doesn't have to be large versions. If it's going for a swim, then you could duck out for a swim. If it's getting in the ocean, then go out in the ocean. There are plenty of things that I think the people can actually do to actually help them do a little bit of that self work, so that'll actually then lead into, from a leadership point of view, and people will start to see the changes. Start to see. Yoga and meditation are really powerful tools to actually help with stress regulation. And a lot of those times where we're sitting in the meetings and we start to talk over people, or we get frustrated, and that causes us to talk over people, it's because we're not regulating our stress appropriately. And so finding calming tools and techniques that can actually do that, to help us with that stress regulation, actually will go a long way into helping people in meetings and how they interact and what they do.
Yeah, and I'm totally in agreement with you, Steve, that just start with one thing, because habit change starts from not trying to take on the 12 practices that I for example would have been practicing to be able to do for many years. One solid practice that you challenge yourself on every day. When you feel, oh, not getting out of bed, oh, I can't do it, that's a moment of integrity. Feel that resistance, and then get up and do it.
Yeah.
Get your shoes by the bed the little tricks for out of bed, feet in the shoes, walking.
Right. Yeah.
It's like make it easy for yourself, but know that resistance is your resistance to anything in life, and there's something to learn in that.
Is it how you do something is how you
one
do
thing is everything.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. And to your point on that, I love the idea. You know, I'm the same as you, right? I get a toolkit. You know, it's like a carpenter's toolkit, right? I get every tool that you could actually think of, and I'll build up with them, and it can become overwhelming. So I've narrowed my toolkit down to, I wake up in the morning and I just have a quick statement of gratitude, because, you know, the alternate was not waking up in the morning. So I get to spend another day, you know, in the now, which is great. And I go and do my meditation. And then after that, myself and my wife spend actually half an hour where we have a hot lemon tea, and we actually have cacao, which is, you know, like a, you know, chocolate for those people who don't really know what cacao is. And that kicks off our day. So it's 4 really simple things. And then I jump into work. And then before I go to bed, I read. So have a shower, hop into bed, and I finish reading. So, you know, a bit of wisdom, a bit of just light reading. And then as I'm going to sleep, again, finish with gratitude. And I just replay back through the day, all the really nice events that happened through the day, and even the bad events. Be grateful for the things that may have gone wrong, and just have a bit of gratitude for them, and then fall asleep. And it's just really some simple things, and they don't take long. They're a couple of minutes here that you're actually doing, but it just helps really bookend the start and finish of the day. And the other thing about the motivation to put the shoes on is, remember how it feels after you've done it. Because when you've finished an activity, you feel the energy, and you feel excited, and you feel happy, and you feel up and going. Remember that. So then when, you know, it's a bit chilly and it's middle of winter and you're going to swing your feet out to put the shoes on, the resistance is how I'm feeling now and how warm my bed is. But use the memory of how good you're going to feel after you've done it, and tap into the memory of how good you're going to feel, and that'll actually help you swing your feet out. And you're only going to be cold for a couple of minutes by the time you quickly whip on some clothes. And if you're like me, you got all the warm clothes within, you know, a foot of the bed anyway. So it's easy to throw one in the middle of winter.
Exactly. Steve, I just want to say thank you for sharing your wisdom with me and everyone else. I've loved talking about integrity. I loved working in GE, and the best reason, the cool people I worked with and how amazing their journeys have been. And yeah, love that. Love connecting to people, and I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Christine. Look, I've loved just us reconnecting, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity for you to, you know, for us to sit down and have a chat. And, you know, I'm looking forward to an opportunity for us to, you know, make this a bit of a nice regular occurrence, and for us to now give an opportunity to share back. So thank you. It's been beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And go out and make that one integrity move. If this has helped you to see why it would be really great for you. Thanks.